Serve us or never see your grandchildren again. That's what my son Connor told me while I was scrubbing his toilet with a toothbrush. His toilet. In the house I built with my own hands 30 years ago. I'm Henry Sullivan, 70 years old, and for 4 months I've been a servant in my own home. Unpaid, humiliated, threatened with losing my grandkids if I complain. My son thought he'd stolen my house, my dignity, and my future. He had no idea that his old postal worker father had been setting a trap for 30 years. In chess, pawns become queens when they reach the enemy's back row. Connor thought he had me checkmated. He was about to learn why you never con a mail carrier who spent 3 decades catching fraudsters. This story has more reversals than a neighborhood mail route, and every single one leads to the same destination: justice delivered, signature required. If you've ever watched a family member get scammed or seen an elderly neighbor being mistreated, comment your state below. Community matters more than blood sometimes. And hit subscribe, because you're going to want to hear exactly how a 70-year-old man destroyed his son's life using nothing but patience, preparation, and a basement full of secrets. Connor made one fatal mistake. He forgot that postal workers always complete their deliveries. Let me tell you about those 30 years on the mail route. Anderson Avenue to Elmwood Drive, 6 days a week, rain or shine. The motto isn't just words when you're walking 15 miles a day through Minnesota winters. My route covered the wealthy part of town. Big houses, manicured lawns, people who tip their mail carrier at Christmas. Not just $5 or $10, mind you. These folks would hand me envelopes with $50, sometimes $100 inside. Thank you for your service, Henry. You're always so reliable. We appreciate you. Dorothy wanted to spend those tips on vacations, maybe a cruise. But I had different ideas. Growing up poor teaches you that rainy days come whether you're ready or not. So every December, after the holiday tips rolled in, I'd take that cash to the bank. Not our regular account. Dorothy would see that. A separate safety deposit box downtown. Just in case. Just in case what? She'd ask when she caught me being mysterious about money. Just in case, I'd say. Turns out I was right to prepare. Connor's childhood wasn't easy. I worked too much, came home tired, had little patience for homework help or heart-to-heart talks. Dorothy filled that gap, maybe too much. By high school, Connor expected things to come easy. College, though, that was different. He worked hard, graduated with a business degree, even got married to a sharp woman. But somewhere along the way, Connor developed expensive tastes. The kind you see in people who grew up working class but think they deserve upper-class lives. His house payment, Brittany's car, the kids' private school. It all cost money they didn't quite have. After Dorothy's funeral, Connor started talking about family legacy, how we needed to be smart about preserving wealth for the grandchildren, how keeping all our assets separate was inefficient. Dad, what if something happens to you? The probate process is a nightmare. We should set up a family trust, maybe do some tax planning. I'd delivered mail to enough lawyers to know trusts weren't simple. But Connor had spreadsheets, PowerPoint slides, the whole sales pitch. Brittany chimed in with real estate market analysis. They made it sound like financial planning, not a con job. The house felt empty without Dorothy. 43 years of marriage, and suddenly I'm heating up frozen dinners and talking to myself. When Connor suggested I move in with them temporarily, just while we figure out the trust details, it seemed reasonable. Think of it as a trial run, Brittany said. Emma and Jake would love having Grandpa around more. That part was true. Emma, 11 years old, bright as a new penny. Jake, 9, quiet but observant. They'd run to me when I visited, wanting stories about mail routes and packages, kids who still thought their grandfather was interesting. So I said yes, temporarily. Connor had prepared papers, trust documents, property transfer agreements, something called a reverse mortgage that would unlock equity while maintaining occupancy rights. The language was dense, full of whereas clauses and heretofore nonsense. But Connor and Brittany explained it simply. The house goes into a family trust. I remain the primary resident. Everyone benefits from shared equity and tax advantages. We signed the papers on a Tuesday afternoon at 3:47 p.m. in Brittany's real estate office. Connor brought a notary, made everything official. I signed where they told me to sign, initialed where they told me to initial. Welcome to the family trust, Dad, Connor said, shaking my hand like we'd just closed a business deal. I moved in with them the following weekend. Temporary, remember? Just until the trust details were settled and we figured out the best arrangement for everyone. The first week was pleasant enough. Family dinners, homework help with the grandkids, feeling useful again. I fixed a leaky faucet, rehung a door that was sticking, small jobs that made me feel needed. Then Connor started talking about contribution and responsibility. Dad, since you're part of the household now, we should all pitch in. Brittany and I both work full-time. The kids have school and activities. Maybe you could handle some of the household management? Household management. That's what he called it. Started small. Could I handle breakfast for the kids? They left early, needed someone reliable to get Emma and Jake fed into the bus stop. Made sense. I'd been waking up at 5:30 for 30 years anyway. Then it was laundry, dishes, vacuum the living room, keep an eye on maintenance and repairs. You're retired, Dad. You've got time we don't have. And honestly, it's the least you can do considering we're covering your housing costs now. Housing costs? In my own house. That's when I started understanding what I'd signed. But I didn't say anything. Not yet. 3 decades of postal work teaches patience. You learn to observe before you act. That's when Connor suggested the perfect investment opportunity. 3 weeks into my temporary arrangement, Connor came home with news about a real estate investment opportunity. A flip property, he called it. Distressed sale, quick turnaround, guaranteed profit. The thing is, Dad, we need to move fast. Market timing is everything, but we're a little short on capital. The reverse mortgage, it turned out, had freed up equity in my house. Not for me, for the family trust. And the family trust needed to make smart investments. It's your money working for you, Brittany explained over dinner. Instead of equity just sitting there, we put it to work. 6-month turnaround, 20% return minimum. The property was on Riverside Drive, she said. Needed cosmetic work, maybe some updating, but the bones were good. Purchase price was $300,000, renovation budget $50,000, projected sale price $420,000. We've done the comps, Connor said, sliding a folder across the table. Conservative estimate says we clear $70,000 profit. That's your cut, Dad. $70,000 for 6 months. I looked through the paperwork. Purchase agreement, contractor estimates, market analysis. Everything looked professional. Brittany's real estate license was on the documents. Connor had business cards from some investment group, but something felt wrong. Maybe it was the way Connor wouldn't meet my eyes when he talked numbers. Maybe it was how Brittany kept checking her phone during the presentation. Or maybe it was 30 years of spotting mail fraud that made me suspicious of anything that seemed too good to be true. How much of the house equity are we talking about? I asked. $350 should cover it, Connor said quickly. The reverse mortgage approval came through at $400,000 total available, so we're being conservative. $400,000 against a house worth $520,000. The math felt aggressive. What about my occupancy rights? I asked. Dad, you're overthinking this. The trust protects your rights. This is just smart money management. Dorothy always said you were too conservative with investments. Using Dorothy against me was a nice touch. Connor had learned something about manipulation over the years. I signed the investment papers that Thursday evening. Connor had everything ready, notary standing by again, Brittany handling the real estate side, transfer of $350,000 from the reverse mortgage credit line to fund the Riverside Drive purchase. Trust me, Dad, Connor said as we finished the paperwork. This is going to work out great for everyone. That night, lying in their guest bedroom, I started thinking about chess again. In chess, sometimes you let your opponent think they're winning. You sacrifice a piece to set up a bigger trap, but you have to be careful. Sacrifice too much, and you won't have anything left to win with. I'd just let Connor access $350,000 of my home equity, money that took me 30 years to build, gone with a signature. But Connor was about to learn something about his old man. Postal workers don't just deliver mail. We also know how to track packages, investigate fraud, and report criminal activity when we see it. The next morning, while Connor and Brittany were at work, I walked through my neighborhood for the first time in months. Riverside Drive was only 6 blocks away. Easy walking distance from Anderson Avenue, part of my old route. The address from the investment papers led me to a vacant lot. Weeds growing through cracked pavement, a rusted for sale sign from 3 years ago. No house, no investment property, no distressed sale waiting for renovation. Connor had just stolen $350,000 using fake real estate documents. I stood there on Riverside Drive, staring at empty concrete, understanding exactly how trapped I'd become. The reverse mortgage was real. The debt against my house was real, but the investment was fiction. I realized I no longer owned the house I built with my own hands. The morning after I discovered the Riverside Drive lot, Connor called a family meeting over breakfast. "Dad, we need to talk about expectations and responsibilities." Emma and Jake sat at the kitchen table, eating cereal before school. They looked uncomfortable, sensing adult tension they couldn't understand. "Brittany and I have been discussing your situation," Connor continued. "Living here isn't just about having a place to stay. You're part of a household now. Everyone needs to contribute." Brittany stepped in with a printed schedule. Breakfast preparation, 6 a.m., kitchen cleanup, 6:45 a.m., laundry rotation Mondays and Thursdays, bathroom maintenance daily, grocery shopping as needed, dinner preparation assistance, 5:30 p.m. "Think of it as household management," she said, using Connor's phrase from before. "You've got the time and experience. We've got work and the kids' schedules." I looked at the schedule. 40 hours a week of housework, no pay mentioned. "What about the investment return from Riverside Drive?" I asked. "When do we see that income?" Connor's jaw tightened slightly. "Real estate development takes time, Dad. These things don't happen overnight. Meanwhile, we need to manage current household expenses." "Your housing costs alone are substantial," Brittany added. "Mortgage payment, utilities, food, property taxes. We're essentially providing free room and board." Free room and board. In my own house. "Kids, finish up," Connor said. "Bus comes in 10 minutes. After Emma and Jake left for school, Connor's tone shifted. "Look, Dad, let's be honest. You don't have many options. The house is leveraged now. The trust requires unanimous consent for major decisions. And frankly, you're 70 years old with no income except Social Security. Where else are you going to go?" He was right about the options. I'd checked. Assisted living facilities cost $3,000 a month minimum. My Social Security was $1,800. The reverse mortgage debt grew every month with interest. Moving out meant admitting I couldn't take care of myself. "Here's what's going to happen," Brittany said, her real estate agent voice taking over. "You follow the schedule, you contribute to household operations, and you maintain a positive attitude. In exchange, you have a place to live and family support." "And if I don't?" I asked. "Then you figure out alternative arrangements," Connor said, "and you won't be seeing Emma and Jake anymore. We're busy people, Dad. We don't have time for negativity or resistance." The threat was clear. Comply or lose contact with my grandchildren. That's how I became a servant in my own house. The schedule was rigid. 6 a.m. breakfast preparation meant scrambled eggs for 4 people, toast, coffee, orange juice. Connor liked his eggs slightly runny. Brittany wanted wheat bread, not white. Emma preferred grape jelly. Jake needed his vitamins mixed into orange juice, or he'd forget to take them. After breakfast, kitchen cleanup meant washing dishes, wiping counters, loading the dishwasher, sweeping the floor. Brittany inspected my work, pointing out spots I'd missed. "Standard's the standard, Henry," she'd say. "Half done is not done." Henry, not Dad anymore. Mondays and Thursdays were laundry days. 4 loads minimum. Whites, colors, delicates, towels. Proper sorting, correct water temperature, appropriate cycle settings. Brittany left detailed instructions about fabric care and folding techniques. Bathroom maintenance was daily humiliation. Cleaning toilets, scrubbing showers, mopping floors, restocking supplies. In the master bathroom, I'd find Connor's business magazines and Brittany's real estate paperwork scattered around, like they lived in a hotel with invisible housekeeping. Grocery shopping became my responsibility too. Brittany would leave lists specific brands, specific stores, sometimes specific sale prices I needed to match. If milk cost 30 cents more at the closer store, she'd send me across town to save the difference. "It's about being cost-conscious," she'd explain. "Every dollar matters when you're managing a household budget." The dinner preparation was worst of all. Standing in my own kitchen, following Brittany's recipes, cooking for people who treated me like hired help. Connor would come home and critique seasoning levels. Brittany would suggest improvements for next time. Emma and Jake watched this with growing discomfort. They'd offer to help with dishes or setting the table, but their parents would redirect them to homework or other activities. "Grandpa's got it handled," Connor would say. That's his job now. 2 months in, Connor made the arrangement official. "Dad, we need to discuss compensation and performance standards. The household operation has specific requirements, and frankly, your work quality has been inconsistent." He handed me a performance review form. Breakfast preparation meets expectations. Cleaning needs improvement. Grocery shopping exceeds expectations due to cost savings. Overall rating satisfactory with room for growth. Going forward, this is a formal arrangement. You perform household duties to standard, you maintain family harmony, and you keep any complaints to yourself. In return, you have housing security and grandparent privileges. "And if my performance doesn't meet standard?" I asked. Brittany handed me a mop and a bucket of cleaning solution. "Welcome to your new job, Dad." That night, lying in the guest bedroom, I made a decision. 30 years of postal service teaches you how to handle fraud investigations. You document everything, you follow procedures, and you build an airtight case before making accusations. Connor thought he was playing chess with a confused old man. He had no idea he was up against someone who'd spent 3 decades learning how to track down mail thieves and document fraudsters. I started with basic research. The local library had internet access and privacy. While Connor and Brittany thought I was out grocery shopping or running errands, I was learning about reverse mortgages, trust law, and real estate fraud. Reverse mortgages are legitimate financial products, but they require specific disclosures and cooling off periods. The paperwork Connor had me sign was missing, required federal warnings about risks and alternatives. That was violation number 1. Trust law in our state requires independent legal representation for all parties. Connor had arranged everything through Brittany's real estate connections. No independent attorney for my interests. Violation number 2. The investment property on Riverside Drive didn't exist, which meant Connor had created fraudulent documents to steal equity funds. That wasn't civil fraud. That was criminal wire fraud, federal jurisdiction. Violation number 3. But knowing about fraud and proving it are different things. I needed documentation. I started carrying a small digital recorder, the kind used for dictation. $40 investment at the electronics store, voice-activated, 60 hours of battery life. Perfect for capturing conversations about household duties, financial arrangements, and family expectations. "Henry, these toilets aren't going to clean themselves." Brittany's voice, Tuesday morning, 8:15 a.m., recorded. "Dad, I don't want to hear any more complaints about your living situation. You're lucky we're taking care of you." Connor's voice, Thursday evening during dinner prep, recorded. "If you can't handle basic housework, maybe we need to look into nursing homes." Brittany again, Friday afternoon after I questioned the grocery list, recorded. Every conversation, every demand, every threat about losing contact with my grandchildren. Digital evidence with timestamps. But I needed legal help. Real legal help. Not Connor's hand-picked notary and real estate connections. Patricia Wells had been on my mail route for 15 years. Tax attorney, solo practice, specialized in elder law and estate planning. I delivered plenty of legal documents to her office, and she'd always been polite, professional, asked about Dorothy's health during her illness. I called her office from the library. "Mrs. Wells, this is Henry Sullivan. I used to deliver your mail on Anderson Avenue. I need legal advice about a family trust situation." She remembered me. Good news for someone who'd been invisible for 3 months. "Mr. Sullivan, I'd be happy to review your documents. Can you come in this week?" I brought everything. The trust paperwork, the reverse mortgage documents, the investment agreements for the non-existent Riverside Drive property. Patricia Wells spent 40 minutes reading through everything, taking notes, asking questions about timelines and who was present during signings. "Mr. Sullivan, this is elder financial abuse," she said finally. "Potentially criminal. The trust document is invalid. You had no independent representation. The reverse mortgage approval was based on fraudulent appraisals, and this investment agreement," she held up the Riverside Drive papers, "this is wire fraud. What are my options?" "Several. We can petition to invalidate the trust, report the fraud to federal authorities, and file for emergency protective orders. But I need to warn you, this will get ugly. Family financial abuse cases usually do. They've threatened to cut off contact with my grandchildren if I cause problems." That's illegal coercion in these circumstances. We can address that too. Patricia Wells explained the next steps. Document everything, avoid confrontation, gather additional evidence if possible. She'd research the property records and financial institutions involved. If we could prove intent to defraud, criminal charges were possible. How long will this take? 6 months minimum for criminal prosecution. Civil remedies might be faster. But Mr. Sullivan, you need to understand, this could destroy your relationship with your son permanently. I thought about Emma and Jake, about 30 years of building equity in my house, about Connor thinking he could turn his father into a servant. Mrs. Wells, I built my relationship with Connor by delivering the mail every day for 30 years, being responsible and reliable. If he wants to destroy that for money, that's his choice, but I won't let him steal my house and my dignity. Then we proceed carefully. Keep recording conversations, document all financial transactions you're aware of, and avoid direct confrontation until we have a complete case. Walking home from Patricia Wells's office, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not desperate hope, but tactical hope. The kind that comes from having a plan and the tools to execute it. I started building my case the way I'd sorted mail for 30 years, methodically, completely, with attention to every detail. Connor and Brittany thought they were managing a confused elderly man who had nowhere else to go. They didn't know they were creating evidence for their own prosecution. Every household task became an opportunity to observe and document. While cleaning Connor's office, I photographed financial documents left on his desk. Credit card statements showing massive debt. Cryptocurrency trading records showing hundreds of thousands in losses. Loan documents I'd never heard about. While doing laundry, I found Brittany's real estate paperwork, client files, property listings, correspondence with other agents, including several emails about liquidating family assets and elderly client management strategies. The basement became my evidence storage area. Every recording, every photograph, every document copy went into a fireproof file box hidden behind the water heater. The same basement Connor thought only held his father's old workshop tools. But Connor had no idea what else I'd hidden in that basement for 30 years. That's when Emma whispered, "Grandpa, I recorded Daddy being mean to you." Emma cornered me on a Tuesday afternoon while I was folding laundry in the basement. She looked around nervously, making sure her parents weren't home yet. "Grandpa, can I show you something?" She pulled out her phone, opened TikTok, and started playing a video. Connor's voice came through the tiny speaker, angry and clear. "Dad, I'm sick of your attitude. You live here for free, you eat our food, and all we ask is that you help with basic household tasks. If you can't handle that, maybe we should look into assisted living facilities." The video showed Emma's bedroom door slightly open, recording the hallway conversation between Connor and me from 3 days earlier. The timestamp was clear, 7:23 p.m. Monday evening. "I recorded it when Daddy was being mean," Emma said quietly. "He doesn't know. I have more." She scrolled through her camera roll. Dozens of audio recordings, some video clips, all capturing moments when her parents treated me like hired help rather than family. "Emma, why are you doing this?" "Because it's wrong," she said simply. "Daddy and Mommy are being mean to you, and I don't like it. Jake doesn't like it either." An 11-year-old girl had better moral clarity than her parents. "Have you shown these to your mom and dad?" "No way. They'd take my phone and be really mad." "But Grandpa, I don't think they should talk to you like that." I sat down on the basement steps, Emma beside me. Here was my granddaughter, trying to protect me with the tools she understood, her phone and social media. "Emma, what you're doing is very brave, but you need to be careful. Your parents love you, even if they're making bad choices right now. Do you want me to stop recording?" I thought about Patricia Wells, about building a legal case, about the value of witness testimony from family members. "No, sweetheart, keep recording, but don't post anything online and don't tell your parents. Can you do that?" "Yes. And Grandpa? Jake has some recordings too." That evening, after dinner cleanup, Jake found me in the basement workshop. 9 years old, quiet like his grandfather, but observant. "Emma told me you want to see my videos," he whispered. Jake's recordings were different. Where Emma captured conversations, Jake had filmed household interactions. Me cleaning toilets while Brittany criticized my technique. Me preparing breakfast at 6 a.m. while Connor complained about coffee strength.
me carrying groceries upstairs while Brittany checked her phone instead of helping. This is like a documentary, Jake. Very good work. I'm making a movie about how Daddy and Mommy treat you, for school. We're supposed to do projects about family, but I don't think teachers know that families can be mean to grandpas. 9 years old, and he understood the assignment better than his parents. Over the next 2 weeks, Emma and Jake became my covert allies. They'd tip me off when their parents were planning family meetings about household standards. They'd record conversations through bedroom doors or from the kitchen when they thought tensions were rising. But more importantly, they started questioning their parents directly. "Mommy, why does Grandpa have to clean our toilets?" Emma asked during dinner one Thursday.
Because everyone in the household has responsibilities, Emma. Grandpa contributes by helping with household management. But it's Grandpa's house, right? Daddy said it used to be Grandpa's house. Connor's face tightened. It's complicated, Em. Grandpa made some financial decisions that affect the whole family now. What kind of decisions? Jake asked. Grown-up decisions, Brittany said quickly. Nothing for you to worry about. But Jake kept pushing. If it's Grandpa's house, why doesn't he get to make the rules? Because Grandpa asked us to help him manage things, Connor said. Sometimes older people need help making good choices. Emma looked confused. But Grandpa delivered mail for like 100 years. Didn't he make good choices then? 30 years, I corrected gently. And yes, Emma, I made good choices. Your daddy's right that I need help with some things now. That weekend, while Connor and Brittany went house hunting, just looking at options, they claimed, Emma and Jake helped me understand how their household really worked. Daddy gets really angry when bills come in, Emma explained. He throws mail on the counter and says bad words. Mommy tells him to keep quiet because we might hear. They fight about money a lot, Jake added. Late at night when they think we're asleep, Daddy says something about crypto and losing money. The kids had been watching their parents' financial stress for months. They understood more than Connor and Brittany realized. Do you know why your parents want Grandpa to live here? I asked carefully. Because you were lonely after Grandma died, Emma said, and because they want to help you. But also because they need help with money, Jake added. I heard Mommy tell Aunt Sarah that having you here helps with expenses. Sharp kid. Too sharp for his own good, maybe. That Sunday evening, Connor announced new household rules, specifically rules about phone usage and recording devices. We need better boundaries around privacy, he said. No phones at dinner, no recording family conversations, no posting family business online. Emma and Jake exchanged glances but said nothing. Later, when their parents were watching television, Emma came to my room. Grandpa, I already saved all my videos to the cloud. Daddy can take my phone, but he can't delete what's already uploaded. 11 years old, and she understood data backup better than her father understood trust law. Emma, you and Jake are very smart kids, but this situation with your parents and me, it's going to get more difficult before it gets better. Are you going to leave us? The question broke my heart. These children were trying to protect me from their own parents, and they were afraid of losing the one adult who had time for them. I'm not going anywhere, sweetheart. But your daddy might get very angry with Grandpa soon. Will you still love us if Daddy gets angry? Forever and always, Emma. Nothing will change that. My granddaughter had just handed me the ammunition I needed. 3 days later, Connor found my recording device. I'd gotten careless, left it charging on the kitchen counter Tuesday morning while I prepared breakfast. Connor came downstairs early, saw the digital recorder, and his face went white with rage. What the hell is this, Dad? Voice recorder, I said calmly. I use it for grocery lists, appointment reminders. Memory isn't what it used to be. He grabbed the device, scrolled through the files. Dozens of recordings, including Monday's conversation where Brittany had explained my performance deficiencies in household management. You've been recording us? His voice was dangerous quiet. Recording private family conversations? I record things I need to remember. Bullshit. Connor deleted files as he spoke. You're building some kind of case, aren't you? What did you do, Dad? Call a lawyer? Try to cause problems for our family? Brittany appeared in the kitchen, took one look at Connor's face, and understood immediately. Henry, this is a massive violation of privacy, she said. Recording people without consent is illegal. Not in our state, but I didn't correct her. I think it's time for a serious family discussion, Connor said. He was using his business voice, the tone he probably used with difficult real estate clients. We sat in the living room, in my house, while Connor and Brittany tag-teamed an intervention. Dad, your behavior has become concerning, Connor started. The resistance to household responsibilities, the secretive behavior, now recording conversations without permission. These aren't the actions of someone who's thinking clearly. We're worried about your mental state, Brittany added. Paranoid behavior, inability to adapt to new living situations, difficulty accepting help from family. They were building a narrative. Confused elderly man, possible cognitive decline, needs professional care management. Maybe it's time to explore assisted living options, Connor continued. Professional facilities with trained staff, structured activities, medical oversight. The threat was clear. Comply completely or lose any semblance of independence. What about Emma and Jake? I asked. What about them? Brittany's voice was cold. Children need stability, positive role models, healthy family environments. If you can't provide that... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Connor leaned forward, using body language to dominate the conversation. Dad, here's what's going to happen. No more recording devices. No more contact with lawyers or outside parties about family business. No more resistance to household expectations. You follow the rules, keep a positive attitude, and contribute constructively to this family. And if I don't, then we'll explore other arrangements for your care. And honestly, Dad, if you force us to place you in professional care, we can't guarantee regular visitation. Emma and Jake have school, activities, their own lives. Driving an hour each way to visit someone who's been hostile and uncooperative. Connor shrugged. It's not realistic long term. Brittany nodded sympathetically. We're not trying to be cruel, Henry. We're trying to help you understand reality. You're 70 years old with no income beyond Social Security, no assets since the house went into trust, and no other family willing to take responsibility for your care. Your choices are simple, Connor said. Be part of this family on our terms, or figure out how to manage on your own. But if you choose to fight us, you'll lose everything. Your housing, your financial security, and your relationship with your grandchildren. They were right about leverage. On paper, they held all the cards. The house equity was tied up in fraudulent investments they controlled. My Social Security wouldn't cover independent living costs. I had no other relatives nearby, no close friends with resources to help. Connor stood up, satisfied he'd made his point. The recording device stays with me. Any other electronics or documents you want to share with lawyers, those stay with us too. Tomorrow we start fresh. New attitude, full cooperation. No more problems. And Dad, Brittany added as they headed upstairs, we're installing a security system. Cameras in common areas, monitoring for safety purposes, just so everyone feels secure. That night, lying in the guest bedroom, I faced the darkest moment of this whole ordeal. Connor and Brittany had systematic control over my housing, my finances, and my access to my grandchildren. They'd built a cage made of legal documents and family obligations, but they'd made one crucial mistake. They thought I was just a confused old man with nowhere to turn and no resources to fight back. In chess, there's a concept called zugzwang, a position where any move you make weakens your position. Connor thought he'd put me in zugzwang. What he didn't understand was that sometimes the weakest-looking piece on the board is the one that's been quietly moving into position for the checkmate. Thursday morning, while Connor and Brittany were at work and the kids were at school, I made my way to the basement, to the workshop area behind the water heater, where I kept my real tools and supplies. The safe was exactly where I'd installed it in 1993, built into the concrete foundation behind a false panel that looked like part of the wall structure. Fireproof, waterproof, designed to protect important documents and emergency resources. I opened it for the first time in 6 months. $230,000 in cash, accumulated over 30 years of Christmas tips from grateful mail customers. Gold coins purchased during the 2008 financial crisis, when bank stability looked questionable. Stock certificates for blue-chip companies, bought through a separate brokerage account Connor knew nothing about. But most importantly, the documents I'd prepared 10 years ago when Connor first started showing signs of financial instability and entitlement behavior. The real trust documents. the ones I'd established with Patricia Wells in 2014, transferring the house into a revocable trust with myself as sole trustee. The real reverse mortgage paperwork from 2019, legitimate documents that protected my equity while providing emergency credit access. The real investment portfolio managed through a financial advisor Connor had never met. Connor thought he'd stolen my house and trapped me in financial dependency. What he'd actually done was commit federal fraud against documents that were already invalid because I'd moved my assets to protective trusts years before his scam began. I'd let him think he was in control while I documented every crime he committed. Tomorrow, Connor would learn what happened when you tried to con a man who'd spent 30 years investigating mail fraud. Tomorrow, my son was going to lose everything, but tonight, Connor screamed he'd make sure I'd die alone and forgotten. Friday morning brought desperation to the household, though Connor and Brittany tried to hide it from the kids. I was making breakfast when Brittany's phone rang. Real estate business from the sound of it. But her conversation was tense. No, the closing can't be delayed. We need that commission this week. I understand market conditions, but we have obligations. Connor appeared in the kitchen, checking his own phone frantically. Cryptocurrency notifications, I realized. The kind of alerts day traders get when positions move against them. How bad? Brittany asked him quietly. Margin call due Monday, 43,000, or they liquidate everything. Emma and Jake were eating cereal, pretending not to listen. But kids hear everything, especially when parents think they're being discreet. After the children left for school, Connor and Brittany had their real conversation. We need the Riverside money released, Connor said. The investment account should have enough to cover the margin call. There is no Riverside investment, Connor. That was just paperwork to access his house equity. The money's been covering our expenses for 3 months. I kept cooking eggs, staying invisible while they panicked about their financial house of cards. What about the house refinancing? Won't clear underwriting. Too much debt to income since your crypto losses. Plus there are some title issues the bank wants resolved. Connor slammed his coffee mug down. What kind of title issues? Something about the trust documentation. The bank's title company has questions about when the trust was established and who had signing authority. Probably just paperwork problems, but it's holding up the process. I smiled slightly. Patricia Wells had been busy. By noon, their situation was critical. Connor spent the morning on phone calls with financial advisors trying to restructure debt and avoid bankruptcy. Brittany was calling real estate contacts, desperate for quick commission opportunities. That's when Connor made his final mistake. Dad, we need to discuss the household budget. I was cleaning bathrooms, his favorite time to have serious conversations. Keep the old man busy with menial work while delivering bad news. The family expenses have been higher than projected, he continued. Your care costs, the kids' school expenses, general household maintenance. We need to optimize some financial positions. What does that mean? It means we're looking at taking a home equity loan against additional house value, just temporary, until some investments mature. Another loan against my house. More debt secured by property I supposedly no longer owned. How much? 200,000 should handle our short-term cash flow needs. I stopped scrubbing the bathroom tile and looked at Connor directly. That seems like a lot of money. Dad, you don't understand how expensive it is to maintain a household this size. Everything costs more than you realize. Plus, we're looking at some investment opportunities that could benefit the whole family. More fake investments. Connor was doubling down on fraud because he had no other options. When would this happen? The paperwork's already prepared. We just need your signature as trust beneficiary. I thought the trust gave you management authority for some things, but loans over 100,000 require beneficiary consent. Legal requirement. Connor handed me a folder. Loan documents, property appraisals, bank approvals. Everything looked official, professionally prepared, but I'd seen enough fraudulent paperwork to spot the tells. Wrong trust identification numbers, property legal descriptions that didn't match county records, bank letterhead that looked slightly off from genuine documents. Connor was trying to steal another $200,000 using forged bank approvals. I need time to review this, I said. Dad, time is a luxury we don't have. The bank needs these documents by Monday, or the offer expires. What if I don't sign? Connor's mask finally slipped completely. Then you'll be responsible for the consequences. The family budget shortfall, the kids' school tuition, the household expenses we can't cover. Plus, honestly, if you can't contribute constructively to family financial management, maybe it is time for assisted living arrangements. I let Connor think he'd broken me completely. Monday morning at 9 a.m., Connor assembled everyone in the living room for the loan signing. Brittany had her real estate paperwork ready, the notary was standing by, and Connor had prepared what he probably thought was his final victory speech. Dad, this is good for everyone. $200,000 in equity access, invested properly, sets the whole family up for financial success. I was sitting in my old recliner, the one I'd bought in 1995, looking like a defeated old man ready to sign whatever they put in front of me. I just have one question before we proceed, I said quietly. Of course. I pulled out my phone and dialed Patricia Wells. Could you conference in my attorney? I want her to witness this transaction. Connor's face went pale. Dad, that's not necessary. We have a notary here. I know, but I want legal representation. Patricia, you're on speaker. Good morning, Mr. Sullivan, came Patricia's voice through the phone. I've reviewed the documents you provided. Connor, could you confirm the current status of the family trust we discussed? Connor looked confused. The trust is active and properly managed. Dad's a beneficiary. We're trustees. Interesting, because according to my records, Mr. Sullivan established a revocable trust in 2014 with himself as sole trustee. The house was transferred to that trust 3 years before your documents were created. The silence in the room was deafening. That's impossible, Brittany said. We have clear title documentation. Miss Sullivan, you have fraudulent title documentation. The house hasn't been owned by Mr. Sullivan personally since 2014. Any reverse mortgage or equity loans secured against that property were obtained through fraudulent representation. I watched Connor's face as he processed this information. Everything he thought he'd stolen had never legally been his to take. Furthermore, Patricia continued, the investment property on Riverside Drive doesn't exist. The bank approvals for today's loan signing are forgeries. Would you like me to conference in the FBI Financial Crimes Unit, or would you prefer to discuss this privately? That's when I pulled out my backup recording device. Connor, for the past 4 months, you've documented yourself committing elder financial abuse, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit bank fraud. Every conversation, every threat about losing access to my grandchildren, every demand that I work as unpaid household help, I played back his greatest hits. Connor demanding I clean toilets or lose grandparent privileges. Brittany establishing my performance standards for household service. The threats about nursing homes and dying alone. But the best evidence, I said, standing up slowly, came from your own children. Emma and Jake appeared in the doorway, having been waiting upstairs as we'd arranged. Emma, would you show your father the TikTok videos? My 11-year-old granddaughter pulled out her phone and began playing recorded conversations. Connor screaming at me about attitude problems. Brittany discussing my employment as household manager. Months of documented abuse captured by children who knew right from wrong better than their parents. Dad, what the hell? Connor started. I'm not your dad anymore, Connor. I'm the man you tried to rob. I walked to the basement and returned with the fireproof box from behind the water heater. Connor's face went white when he saw what was inside the safe. Stacks of cash and bank bands. $230,000 accumulated over 30 years of tips from grateful mail route customers. Gold coins from the 2008 financial crisis. Stock certificates worth another $100,000. You thought you'd stolen everything I owned, I said calmly. What you actually did was document yourself committing federal crimes while I prepared to defend myself. The house, Brittany whispered, has been in protective trust for 10 years. The reverse mortgage you convinced me to sign was against property I didn't personally own, making it invalid. Every dollar you accessed was obtained through fraudulent documentation. I sat back down in my recliner and looked at my son. Connor, you turned your father into a servant for money that was never yours, in a house you never owned, while committing crimes that carry 5 to 10-year federal sentences. Patricia Wells continued through the speakerphone. Mr. Connor Sullivan, you should contact Criminal Defense Counsel immediately. The FBI Financial Crimes Unit will want to discuss wire fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy charges. Miss Brittany Sullivan, the Real Estate Licensing Board, will also want to review your involvement in fraudulent property transactions. Emma, Jake, could you go back upstairs, please? I said gently. After my grandchildren left the room, Connor tried one last manipulation. "Dad, please. The kids, their school, our whole life. Don't destroy our family over money." I looked at him for a long moment. This man who'd ordered me to scrub toilets, who'd threatened to isolate me from my grandchildren, who'd called me a burden and a financial drain while stealing my life savings. "Connor, you destroyed this family the moment you decided to steal from your father. I'm just documenting the consequences." The man who made me a servant was now begging for mercy. By Wednesday, Connor's world had collapsed completely. The FBI Financial Crimes Unit moved fast once Patricia Wells submitted our evidence. Federal wire fraud carries serious penalties, especially when it involves elder abuse and cryptocurrency money laundering. Connor's digital trading records showed a clear pattern. Steal equity from the house, lose it in high-risk crypto speculation, steal more to cover losses. The margin calls Connor had been panicking about triggered automatic reviews by federal banking authorities. When they discovered he'd been using fraudulently obtained reverse mortgage funds for cryptocurrency day trading, the investigation expanded to include money laundering charges. Brittany's real estate license was suspended pending investigation. The State Professional Licensing Board takes fraud seriously, especially when it involves trusted relationships with elderly clients. Her connection to the falsified property documents and fraudulent loan applications meant criminal charges in addition to professional sanctions. But the most satisfying moment came Thursday morning. I was making breakfast for myself and my grandchildren, who'd moved back in with me, when Connor appeared at the kitchen door. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in 4 days, unshaven, wearing the same clothes from Monday, carrying a manila envelope. "Dad, can we talk?" Emma and Jake were eating cereal before school. They looked at their father with the confused expression children get when adults they trusted turn out to be unreliable. "Kids, finish up," I said gently. "Bus comes in 10 minutes. After they left, Connor sat heavily at the kitchen table. "The lawyers say I'm looking at 5 to 8 years federal time," he said quietly. "Brittany's already filed for divorce. The house—" He gestured around the kitchen. "I can't afford the legal fees." I poured myself coffee and sat across from my son. "What do you want from me, Connor?" "I want to understand why. Why you didn't just talk to me about concerns. Why you let this get so far. Why you destroyed our family instead of working things out." I sipped my coffee and considered his question. "Connor, 4 months ago, you ordered me to clean your toilets or never see my grandchildren again. You called me a burden, treated me like hired help, and stole $350,000 from my house equity. What exactly did you want me to work out?" I was desperate. The crypto losses, the debt, Brittany's pressure to maintain our lifestyle. I thought the house money was just sitting there doing nothing. It was my house money, earned through 30 years of postal work. I know that now. Connor pulled documents from the manila envelope. "The lawyers want me to sign a plea agreement. Admit to elder abuse and wire fraud, cooperate with federal prosecutors, serve 4 years minimum. What's the alternative? Trial, but with your recordings, the kids' videos, the documentary evidence." He shrugged. "The lawyers say I'd get 8 to 10 if convicted at trial." I finished my coffee and looked at my son. This man who'd been so confident about family financial management just 1 week ago. "Connor, I have a question for you." "Okay. Do you understand what you did wrong?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I stole from you. I treated you terribly. I used the kids as leverage to control you. Keep going. I forgot you were my father. I forgot everything you taught me about work and responsibility and respect. And I became someone I don't recognize. Someone who would exploit his own father for money." I nodded slowly. "Sign the plea agreement, Connor. Take responsibility for what you did." The man who demanded service was now serving time. 6 months later, my house had become a home again. Emma and Jake officially moved in with me after Brittany's conviction and Connor's sentencing. The children needed stability, and frankly, I needed their energy and laughter to fill rooms that had been quiet too long. We converted Connor's old office into a homework space. The guest bedroom became Emma's room, decorated with posters of her favorite singers and a desk for art projects. Jake took the basement workshop area, which we cleaned up and turned into a space for building model airplanes and learning basic carpentry. The kitchen was alive again. Saturday morning pancakes, homework help over dinner, bedtime stories in the living room. These kids had watched their parents make terrible choices, but they'd also learned to distinguish between right and wrong under pressure. Eleanor Fitzgerald from down the street became our unofficial grandmother figure. She'd stop by twice a week to check on the kids and help with transportation to school activities. The neighborhood network that had supported my legal case had evolved into a genuine extended family. Patricia Wells helped me establish college funds for Emma and Jake, using proceeds from the recovered house equity and my hidden savings. Connor's financial crimes had actually strengthened my financial position. The fraudulent reverse mortgage was voided, returning full ownership to my trust, while the criminal restitution order meant Connor would be paying damages for years. I started a small workshop business in the garage, teaching basic carpentry and home repair to neighbors. Nothing fancy, just helping people maintain their homes and learning practical skills. Emma and Jake often helped with simple tasks, learning the satisfaction that comes from building things that last. The kids visit their father twice a month at the Federal Correctional Facility. I drive them there and wait in the car, giving them private time with Connor. He's working in the prison carpentry shop, learning skills he never took time for as a free man. Brittany moved out of state after her conviction, seeking a fresh start somewhere people didn't know about her real estate fraud. The kids get birthday cards and Christmas presents, but no regular contact. Maybe that's better for everyone. Sometimes people ask if I feel guilty about sending my son to prison. The answer is simple. I feel sad that Connor chose to become someone who belonged in prison, but I don't regret protecting myself and my grandchildren from his choices. I learned that home isn't a building you can steal or a debt you can manipulate. Home is where people respect each other, where children feel safe, and where a 70-year-old man can build furniture in his garage while his grandchildren do homework upstairs. If you've seen elderly neighbors being mistreated, share this story. Sometimes the best inheritance we can leave our grandchildren isn't money, it's the knowledge that justice exists when good people stand together.